You're never going to believe this. The one good take I had, my mic was muted. That's insane. Anyways, yes, I hope you're having a good day today. Hope all's doing well with who's ever listening. Yeah, I just kind of wanted to talk about, psychopaths, sociopaths, and narcissists and how they're actively destroying everything. I mean, it's like a problem with the fact that they just can't let go. They have no concept of just being able to, let others have free will or do what they want to do. They always have to be having watchful eye. And, obviously people are going to critique and be like, oh, psychopaths are actually just watching carefully from the shadows and then they know when to pounce. But do they though? Because clearly they want to control you. Obviously, like just looking at who they are as people, obviously they just want to control you. I mean, think about it. The fact that they have to try so hard in order to get an edge up over somebody. Like, think about the average person who cares about people. You're not trying to get an edge on somebody. You're just trying to be nice to them. And their kindness is reflected back to you, if they're a kind person, is reflected back to you in a way where, you can get stuff out of them. And I'm not saying extracting information and or resources, but people will willingly give things over. Whereas, the evil types, they just want to steal everything. And obviously there's biblical implications of this. Satan has come to destroy and maim and kill. But obviously God comes to give life. And that's sort of you can sort of see who's batting for what team, right? And this is sort of what I was getting back to when I was saying they can't let go. They can't just let their ego go. They have to be in control. And it's a shame. It really is a shame because, if everybody cared, obviously we wouldn't have the society we have. And, things would just be better. You can see it. I mean, just let's take it to its logical conclusion. If I gave every so often to a neighbor, hopefully I would hope, and this is where like faith comes in, that you would hope and have a little faith that maybe they'd reciprocate for you because they love you. It's agape love. It's not, like a love like, you're kissing on your neighbor or anything. But yeah, it's a shame how far we've fallen because that's really the only way that society operates is through that agape love because we're witnessing the decoupling of societal love right now. I mean, it's very slow, but it's happening. And this has nothing to do with, Israel or whatever, and I'll talk about that at a later date. Me personally, I'm gonna drop a little bit though. Like, I just do not like modern day Israel. It's not the same as ancient Israel. It's just not. Like, I have my reasons for that. But yeah, like besides all like whatever, anti-Semitism, like no, actual like you go and try to be nice to somebody and what do? They metaphorically spit in your face. They hurt you, they crucify you in some way, and it hurts. There's only so much of that somebody can take before they just crack. And this is why I feel so bad, and everybody's going to disagree with me when I say this, but I feel so bad for school shooters because how did they get to where they are, right? Well, they got to where they are because of either bullying or mistreatment or malicious intent from others anyways and whatnot. I mean, it's really hard for somebody to just be like, fuck it. Like, I am willing to destroy everything, and that is the only thing that will give me peace, right? And granted, yes, there are some people who I don't remember what it's called. Let me look this up. I think it's called SSRIs, right? SSRI. It's a type of drug, right? Yeah. SSRIs, where like, they'll take these drugs and then they just don't know really what the fuck they're doing. And I've never been on SSRIs, but even just taking like, I'm allergic to amoxicillin, any of the penicillin type stuff. So I really get like fucked up. Yeah, I get like hives and everything else. So usually they prescribe me with doxycycline or any of the, any of that type of branding, whatever you want to call that type of drug. But that stuff really, really fucks me up like bad. Like the side effects of it are insane. I have, all these problems with it and yada, yada, yada. And I know this is a little bit of a tangent too, but prednisone. dude, oh my God. If I get a lung infection and they give me prednisone, like, I'm like, no, I cannot take this shit. Dude, one time, I thought my dad was mowing the lawn in the fucking house. like, like, it sounded like he was right next to me. And I'm in the bathroom, like, I'm in the back of the house. And it sounds like he's around the corner mowing the lawn in the house, right? But, like, I was so off a beam that I couldn't tell what was happening. So once again, imagine these people, how they get in these positions where they fly off the handle. You know, they get taken, or they get given drugs or take drugs or whatever, and you know, everybody's bullying them at school and beating them up and whatever, and they just say, fuck it, I got nothing else to live for. You know, you people harass me, beat me up, you know, yada yada yada. And then notice too, like, this pisses me off, is when I see somebody who was like, you know, there at the, when they do the interviews after all is done. You know, they're talking about the guy, and he's saying, or he or she, whoever is doing the interview, about the person that most likely died or shot themselves in the head after they shot up the school, is saying, oh yeah, I always knew something was wrong with him, or blah, 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 blah. And, you know, they never say, I wish I stepped up and did the right thing. They always push a thing of, I didn't like this person in the first place. And that's heartbreaking. You know, and this gets back to, like, you know, psychopaths, sociopaths, and narcissists, where, like, I'm sure you've heard of it, normies. Normies kind of do fit into those categories where they have no concept of others. They have no concept of the collective. It is just me, me, me. And, you know, I'm just thinking, I don't know if I was ever there. Like, I'm not saying I'm perfect by any means, but I don't know, even when I was little, that I was ever so much about myself. Now, I didn't know the gospel. I mean, let's be real here. Everybody, or almost everybody, goes to, like, whatever, Catholic or Baptist or whatever, especially white people here in America. We do these things where we go to church when we're younger, and then we kind of grow out of it. And I had that phase. I went to church when I was younger. My grandma took me. Possibly one of the greatest women on earth, honestly. And I'm not even just saying that because she's my grandma. I mean, she's really a fucking trooper. She was a you know, her husband, I guess, was a narcissist. And holy shit, the horror stories that she tells me about my grandfather. But anyways, yeah, like, you know, normies have this sort of pizzazz about them where they just don't give a shit. I mean, I take my mom to this therapy place down the road from me, and every time I walk in, I just feel like nobody cares. Like, there's a sort of facade in the room, you know, where you can just kind of tell when somebody's like a main character, and swear to God, nobody in there is a fucking main character. There might be there might be, I don't know. They're nice, but I don't know if I can have this conversation with them where I'm like having a heart to heart, which the name of the channel, right? Because obviously my listeners will have the understanding and the brain concept to really grasp what I'm saying here. And I hope I'm not talking in circles. I feel like I am. This is kind of my first time doing this. So, you know, I grew out of church, and then on my way, when I was driving to college one time, I made a really weird connection that I was really big into sci-fi stuff. I still am, obviously, but now that I understand how, like, sci-fi works a little bit more, I can be like, okay, obviously we're never going to have time travel, and I'll maybe explain that at another date. But, you know, there are certain things like aliens, right? And their correlation to demons. I know that sounds so crazy, but, you know, they smell like sulfur. I was, like I said, in the Jeep on my way to college. It was like an hour and 10-minute commute for me. And the guy was talking about aliens, and he was like, yeah, and, you know, in this story, because he was talking about a time in the 1960s when aliens dropped down on a farm in West Virginia. He said, yeah, they smell like sulfur. And I was like, well, that's odd. Like, why would they smell like that? You know, what a weird thing, right? You know, humans don't have a chemical smell. I mean, we do, but it's nothing like a standard, an elemental smell. And then obviously, we learn about fire and brimstone and hell and all this other shit. And even the things that these aliens do, right? They can phase through walls. Many a times there's time dilation. There's all this crazy shit that happens that can only be explained from them being supernatural. There's no sort of, and obviously people are going to say, oh, their tech is so advanced that we can't tell the difference between magic and science fiction. And I really doubt that, because every time that they've said, oh, we're from, like in the 60s, they said, oh, we're from Mars. And then they said, oh, we're from this place. And then they said, so every time we were able to figure out where they were actually from, they lied to us, right? So if you truly come with the best intentions, why are you lying? And especially if you're truly an advanced civilization, like I was talking about before with narcissists, psychopaths, sociopaths destroying the country and the world, you cannot build trust upon that, right? You just can't. You, like, if you're trying to build a intergalactic civilization, you don't build that shit with lies, right? You build it with trust. That's the only way that your society can function. Maybe unless they are like, everybody's reading their minds, therefore they're going to lie to whatever. But like, I just don't believe it. I don't believe it. I don't believe that they say they who they are, or they say that they are who they are, and that they're actually evil. They are. I mean, they've been studying people for what, fucking 80 years now, and you mean to tell me that every time they got to shove something up somebody's ass? Like, at what point are your results invalid? It's like, oh shit, we threw out the data, let's just shove another rod up somebody's ass. No. Like, they're trying to actually, fuck with you. And also all the weird, like, breeding shit with them, Like, they're always fucking with genes, which this kind of gets back to the Bible thing, where, back in the days of Noah, there was all sorts of, weird shit going on with genetics. So they're obsessed with the genes, and this is part of the reason why I actually believe in Revelation, that it'll be some sort of, like, gene editing. Like, okay, if you take the mark of the beast, right, you cannot go to heaven. You just cannot. There's no way. So if God came down as Jesus Christ, purely man, like purely man blood, there wasn't anything mixed. And we know that this is kind of a little bit of some esoteric lore here, but Jesus Christ was crucified over top of the Ark of the Covenant. And we know this because in the Old Testament, they would sprinkle the blood of the lamb over top of the Ark of the Covenant and say, Yod He Vav He, which means, behold the hand, behold the nail, right? So who are they talking about? They're talking about Jesus Christ. And they would sprinkle that, like I said, over the Ark of the Covenant every year at a specific time. And I don't remember the exact time, but also, too, the camps would be structured in the shape of a cross. So you'd have, like, the 12 tribes, you'd have 2 up top and then 3 on the sides and then 4 at the bottom, right? It's 6, 6, 12. So, it'd be in the shape of a cross. Or whatever the shaping, or the setting up of the tribes was. It might not have been 2 and 4 and 3 and 3. It might have been, 3, 3, 3, whatever. Anyways, yeah, like the Ark of the Covenant had to have been underneath Jesus Christ when he was crucified, because the blood of the Lamb, which he is the Lamb of God, had to have been placed on top of the Ark. So, where the fuck was I going with that? The the fact that his blood, he is truly man, right? So if you mix with something else, and let's say it's of a higher power, such as like the Nephilim or whatever, you cannot be accepted into heaven. You just can't, because the sins of the Nephilim, or the sins of that genealogy, the angels, like, once they make a sin, it's up for them, right? Once you make a sin, it's up for you. But God gave us a way back to him, right? Through Jesus Christ. But what I'm saying is, there was no angel reclamation for them, right? It was just for us. They fucked up. They knew what they were doing, and they fucked up. So we didn't have the fullness. We didn't have the full concept yet until after we had ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So it only makes sense that if you take the mark of the beast, which will in some way give you like superhuman ability, it has to be, because it's going to be so good looking to the average person. Like, everybody wants to level up. Everybody I see in society wants to level up. They want to be cuter. They want to be hotter. They want to be more handsome. They want to be smarter. They want to be better. And I can't blame them. I want to be better. I do too. But we shouldn't be making deals that we can't, that would be stupid of us, right? We have this short-sighted mindset, especially in America. You can see it in our politics, where everything is now. And what better ploy for them to have than, oh, well, if you just take this, you'll be better. You'll be able to read minds, and you'll know the knowledge of everything, and blah, 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 and you'll be, smarter, sexier, hotter, more handsome, and it'll be a lie. Because what's funny is when you die and you believe the gospel, you are given a sinless, immortal body. You are. Many people say that the rapture was made in the 1860s or whatever, and that's just not true. It talks about the harpazo, or even, I believe it's Jesus who talks about this. It might not be. It might be just Old Testament tradition where you'd have a husband and a wife, and the husband would take the wife for a week, which was obviously 7 days. I believe it's roughly like in this realm here. I don't remember exactly how many days, or if the husband, whatever, but it's roughly with this. And he would take her into his house, or the father's house, or whatever, for 7 days. Notice the parallels between the rapture, right? We get taken before the tribulation because God loves us. Why would he force us to go through trials and tribulations? We believe in him. Why would he let any part of his body suffer? Yeah, we're taken in there, and then we come out after 7 days, or the bride comes out in the Old Testament tradition after 7 days with the bridegroom, and they look beautiful. They're amazing. So, and that's sort of the same thing with us, is that we come back and we look amazing. We're perfect. And granted, see, this is what's so fucking awesome, is that God sees us as we are meant to be in the future, right? So I said this to my friend. I'm going to have him, once I get an audio interface, because I hate talking through a fucking mic. Once I get an audio interface, I'm actually going to set up like a legit podcast setup with my friend and, kind of do this thing. But him and I were talking about men versus women, right? And the reason why I love God. So women will see men for their future, right? And for now. So like she'll look at a guy now and she'll be like, oh, he's cute, or, he's attractive, and what are his prospects in the future? Like, what is he going to be doing? Oh, he's going to be a billionaire. Oh, he's going to be, she's absolutely going to be like, yes, I'll take that man. Or if he's going to be poor in the future, she'll be like, I don't know. He's cute, but I don't really want to suffer my life. And then men will look at a woman's past and their present, right? But God looks at your fullness. So like who we were and our sins, obviously. So like we are covered by the gospel. We are covered by, that was kind of a fuck up. We're covered by Jesus Christ's blood. And we were once sinners, and now we aren't, right? So like, okay, let me go back. So obviously, yes, we will continue to sin. It's just going to happen until we get our resurrection body. But God sees us for our future selves because he knew us from the beginning of creation. He says this. Now, obviously, there are parts of the Bible where it says, I never knew you, depart from me. But that is for people who do not understand Christ, right? So like people who believe that their works will save them. And if this is your first time hearing this, your works will not save you. This is the difference between Christianity and every other religion, is that every other religion says you have to do X, Y, Z. The monks have to pray on the mountaintops and just sit there for fucking hours. The Muslims have a call to prayer every 5 times a day or whatever. Sikhs have a call to prayer every whatever it is, 3 times a day, 8 times a day. The Jews, they have their their Shabbat, their whatever. But like all of it is just works. And your works are as dirty rags. And that's what's so funny about the Jews, is that they don't even fucking catch that. It's in the Old Testament. Hello, are we listening? Are we reading at all? It tells us that our works will not save us. But look at what the angel of the Lord says, who is Jesus Christ. He says, I will cleanse the sins from this land in a day, right? And that shuts Satan the fuck up. He just stops talking. So my point is, God sees us for who we were and who we are and who we will be. He sees the fullness of us because he loves us. I'm going to shift a little bit because I'm kind of talking, not really in circles, but like my mind is kind of running. And I promise I don't have ADHD. It's just, there's a lot to unpack. And when I'm talking by myself, my mind will just run, right? If I'm talking, like I said, if I get on deep on here, it'll actually be a normal podcast. It's not going to be this like jump skippity la la. Yeah, excuse me. What was some stuff that we might have skipped over? Oh yeah, the narcissists, psychopaths, sociopaths, and the normies. That's what I'm going to go back to that. So normies have this character quality about them, like I said before, where everything's surface level, right? So when you see them, they just say, oh, how are you? How are you doing? So for context, I don't know what I am. I don't know if I'm gifted. I don't know if I'm autistic. It's somewhere within that realm. Either that or I just care truly for us as people. And I'm not saying that to be like, look at how much I care. I'm just saying, I care about people. I hate people suffering. This is what fucking makes me mad about the news and everything else, is that everybody complains, but nobody has a fucking solution. I'll get to that at some point, but normies kind of do this thing where, like I just said, they just complain and have no solution. They can't see the end of things. They have no care for anybody except for themselves. And that's really just so hard for me to wrap my head around, because they'll watch a movie and they'll feel sad, but like they don't grasp the fullness of the concept. They just don't. And I'm not saying that I'm the arbiter of truth and that I understand everything at all times. In fact, there's a guy I listen to on YouTube that tells me about the Bible, and it's just so far beyond what I can understand. Sometimes I have to replay the video like 5 fucking times. I just do. It's so out there. But what I'm saying is, like, normies have this thing where they just don't, like, if you're like, hey, I'm kind of down and out, they hit you with the most surface level bullshit small talk, right? And if you hit them with something like what I'm talking about, where you're like, hey, how are you feeling today? I really do care about you. I think you're a wonderful person. They think you're like infatuated with them instead of just being honest and forthright, because honesty will go a long way. And they can't be them true selves, or they can't be their true selves, excuse me. Everybody's masking. Like, even when I go out, I try to be normal, but yet I want to have these conversations with people. Like I was talking about with the therapy place. I go into therapy, and granted, it's not like mental therapy. It's like a physical therapy place. My mom hurt herself, and I go in there and everybody's smiling and nice, but that's it. There's no sort of growth. I mean, I feel like I constantly have to be growing as a person. If I'm not, then I feel a little stagnant. I feel a little like sometimes you just have to take a break. That's true. But, sometimes I'm trying to be a better person at all times. And eventually you will just get to a point where you just can't. You physically can't. You form a piece of coal into a diamond, and you keep trying to form it, it'll break, it'll crack. The same process goes with humans. We have a molding process. I mean, I'd say something like Paul, like the Apostle Paul, went from hating Christians to being easily one of the best people in the Bible, so goated, so based. Basically telling the churches to fuck themselves and get better. What's better than that? Because I would prefer the truth than to live a lie. And I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that believe the same thing. Yeah, normies just can't. They can't do it. And they always have to have some leg up. Like, it's a hierarchy system. Somebody said that the other day. I was watching a YouTube video about that, where like it's such a foreign concept to me, because I view a homeless person who is very unlucky to somebody, like they're the same, like somebody who's homeless very unlucky, and somebody who is a rich person and was very lucky, right? Like there's not, and I play the Fallout games, so we have the skill tree, right? You have like, or the skill tree, your special traits. It's what makes you special. It's strength, perception, endurance, charisma, intelligence, agility, and luck. And if you know the games, you can only put certain stuff into certain categories. And people are the same way, right? Like where all of our traits are on this giant wheel. And how you push your traits in one direction or the other is what you get. Because and the thing is that the wheel also contains good and evil, right? So you can have somebody who is just the epitome of evil, but yet their traits are just as powerful and if not equal to somebody who's on the opposite side, who all their traits are good, right? Or like, somebody who's a very good carpenter is maybe not a very good mechanic, or, somebody who's a very good cook is maybe not very good at computer work. but those traits, they're like within those sub traits are like, somebody who's very good at being kind is maybe not very good at being evil, or somebody who's very good at evil, that's all on this wheel. The wheel, like I said, also contains, facade. Somebody who's very good at being fake versus somebody who's very good at being authentic they might not correlate. Or you can be both. Somebody who's very good at faking is also very good at being authentic, but they lose a trait in some arbitrary category wherever else. So I just get disappointed, I think, a lot with normie types where they just have no strong care, a strong desire. Or maybe they do and they just don't show it very well. Now, if that's the case, I forgive them, or I can't really forgive myself. I hope they forgive me for being so hard on them. And I just want to be just, right? Like when I say these things, because these people for some reason cannot be the true versions of themselves. They can't have a heart-to-heart. Sometimes, and I get it, if you're working, right, like I was saying about therapy, if you're working and somebody comes up to you and starts talking like I am, you're going to think I'm fucking crazy, right? You're going to be like, okay, well, like, why is this guy here trying to lecture me? But my point isn't to lecture you, right? If you're listening, my point is not to lecture you. It's to share the fullness of my heart and my mind with you. And I hope you do the same in the comments. I hope you really share maybe something about yourself, or because I love seeing those comments on other videos. I love seeing like, hey, blah, 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 blah. This really helped me a lot. Or like, what do you think about this? Or like, you never thought about this. Like, not trying to be an ego thing. Like, I don't want you guys to be egomaniacs. But I also want you to be like, hey, I think you're wrong. I think you're missing something. I think that yada, yada, yada. And I'm not going to argue with you in the comments. I just would like you to state what you believe. I want to try to create a good community on here as well. Everybody's going to be fighting everywhere else. You see it with a lot of the political people. And of course, I'm going to talk politics on here. But I'm hoping that I don't offend anybody. I really do want the best for everybody. I really believe that freedom is the best way, because if you're not free, what are you? Right? That's another common theme in the Bible, where like Jesus tells us that we were slaves and we were set free, right? We were once slaves and then he set us free. And that's just true. That's just like it just is. Free from sin, free from bondage, because the weight of the law that gets put on you is bondage. We're not supposed to really be looking to the law for our salvation. We look at the law and we say, it's like it's a litmus test. Like, do you pass this? Okay, well then, whatever. But the fact that everybody can look at it and be like, I've failed at least one of these at one point in my life, shows us that we cannot be saved by the law. We can't be. I'm trying to think of what else we can talk about. I mean, like I said, I'm kind of jumping everywhere. Hopefully I'm making sense. I don't even know if this thing's still recording anymore. Okay, good. I don't know. The world's a mess right now. Obviously, you see it with Iran and everything. Personally, I believe there's I don't know. I'm like mixed between a draft actually. Like obviously, I'm not saying we should have a draft at all. I'm just saying that whether the circumstances of it, like are we going to have one versus are we not? And I'm sort of in the middle where I really think that the president's going to do something that stupid and have a draft because that'll just be up. It'll just be up for us. Like I really think that there are so many Americans and including myself that will be fighting to the bitter end to make sure that we're not killing you know, people. Somebody said one time the hardest part about taking a life is pulling the trigger, and I'm not so sure about how true that is. Because in a sense, you're throwing away, you're using the cosmic dumpster on somebody. Like they go either to eternal life or the cosmic dump. And that's sort of what Gehenna is in the Bible. So it's hard for me to be like, this person deserves. I mean, even the guy who just passed away, the guy who made OnlyFans, I can't remember his name, the Ukrainian guy. He died of cancer, and yes, he's evil. He is evil. But at the same time, I'm like kind of split. And I'm not passive. I actually agree with Elijah. I think we should just fucking destroy every prophet of Baal. I just do. That's just me. But at the same time, part of me is like, that person will never know eternal life. They just won't. They won't. And that's hard for me because I know I would never want to go into eternal death. So it's hard for me to essentially make the choice of whether, and technically they made their choice by not believing, but you see what I'm saying, by speeding up the process, by sending them there quicker. And I don't know if I could do that. Especially not some fucking guy who doesn't even believe the gospel in the first place, or some girl, bombing a school building just because. This is why modern Jews are not the same Jews as, the people in the past. They're just not. And granted, Israel had its problems back then, between idol worship, all the stupid shit they were doing, but at the same time, many of them believed their Messiah would come. And obviously, sort of, today they do the same, but many of them believe that their Messiah is going to be some guy who's going to, save them here, not save their soul. That's another thing that's so awesome about Jesus Christ, is that every time somebody thinks they know God, myself included, that he just does a 180. He's like, actually, you don't know me yet. Like the same thing about, people didn't know their Messiah had shown up because everybody thought that he was going to destroy their enemies in the flesh, not destroy evil on the cross. There's a difference. And he just always amazes me. There is always something new to be seen. And that's crazy for a book that's, the New Testament being 2,000 years old. And obviously, yes, I know it was made in whatever, 70 AD or whatever, or made in 30 or 60 AD or, that stuff. I'm just saying 2,000 year marker. But it's just, it amazes me how much we can pull from the Old and New Testament and what it says about us, what it says about who we are as people, who we can be as people, what we believe, what we don't believe, and what we think we know versus what we don't know, or actually know, rather. All right, let me see if I can piece my thoughts together in the editing phase here. All right, have a good rest of your day.